I, 17F, am struggling with a really difficult situation involving my mom, 42F, and her new husband, Thomas, 45M. To give some background, my biological dad passed away from lung cancer when I was 10 years old. He was diagnosed when I was 8, and those 2 years of his illness were incredibly tough on our whole family. I remember spending a lot of time at the hospital, watching my strong, vibrant dad slowly waste away. It was traumatic, to say the least. My dad and I were extremely close before he got sick. He coached my soccer team, taught me to play guitar, and we had a standing daddy-daughter date every Sunday where we'd go get ice cream and talk about anything and everything. Losing him left a huge void in my life that I'm still struggling to fill 7 years later. After my dad died, it was just my mom and me for a long time. We leaned on each other a lot during those first few years and became incredibly close. We had a Friday night tradition of ordering pizza and watching cheesy rom-coms together. My mom would tell me stories about my dad and we'd look through old photo albums. It wasn't always easy, but we got through it together. About 3 years ago, my mom started dating again. I was hesitant at first, but I could see how lonely she'd been and I wanted her to be happy. She went on a few casual dates, nothing serious. Then she met Thomas through some mutual friends at a neighborhood barbecue. They hit it off right away and started spending more and more time together. Thomas seemed nice enough at first. He was polite to me and made my mom laugh in a way I hadn't seen in years. But I made it clear from the start that while I was fine with my mom dating, I wasn't looking for a new dad. Thomas appeared to respect that boundary initially. Things started to change after my mom and Thomas got married last year. They had a small ceremony at the courthouse. Nothing fancy. I was happy for my mom, but also felt conflicted. It was hard seeing her exchange vows with someone who wasn't my dad. After the wedding, Thomas moved into our house. That's when he really started pushing to take on a fatherly role with me. At first it was little things, trying to help me with homework, offering to drive me to soccer practice, asking about my friends and social life. I tried to be polite but maintain some distance, but Thomas's attempts to parent me have gotten more forceful over time. He's constantly trying to give me advice about school, my future plans, even my dating life. He insisted on attending my parent-teacher conferences and college tour visits. He even tried to have the talk with me about safe sex, which was mortifying. I've repeatedly told him I'm not comfortable with this level of involvement from him, but he doesn't seem to get it. The other day, things came to a head when I came home about 30 minutes late from hanging out with my friends. I had texted my mom to let her know I was running behind, and she said it was fine. But when I got home, Thomas was waiting up and tried to ground me for breaking curfew. I told him he had absolutely no right to punish me since he isn't my real dad. My mom overheard and got really upset. She said I need to respect Thomas as my stepfather, and that he has every right to discipline me as a parental figure in our home. I replied that while I can be polite to Thomas as her husband, I'll never see him as my dad or accept him trying to parent me. This led to a huge blow-up where my mom accused me of being selfish and ungrateful. She said Thomas has done so much for our family, and I need to accept that he's part of it now. I tried explaining that it feels disrespectful to my dad's memory to treat Thomas like a father, but my mom wouldn't listen. She ended up taking my phone away as punishment for being disrespectful to Thomas. I'm so frustrated and hurt by this whole situation. I feel like my mom is trying to erase my dad and replace him with Thomas. I know she's happy with him, and I don't want to ruin that for her, but I can't pretend to feel something I don't. My dad was my hero and best friend for 10 years. Thomas has been in my life for 3 years and married to my mom for 1. How can they expect me to suddenly view him as my father? I miss my dad terribly, especially during milestones like my Sweet 16 last year, and now as I'm starting to look at colleges. It kills me that he won't be there to see me graduate or walk me down the aisle someday. Having Thomas try to step into those roles feels wrong and painful. At the same time, I feel guilty for not being more accepting of Thomas. He seems to genuinely care about me and want to be part of my life, but it feels like he's trying to force a connection and level of closeness that just isn't there. I wish he could just be my mom's husband and leave it at that, instead of pushing to be my dad. I'm worried this situation is going to permanently damage my relationship with my mom. We used to be so close, and now it feels like there's this wall between us. I hate fighting with her, but I also don't want to compromise my feelings or memories of my dad. Am I being unreasonable here? Should I just suck it up and go along with treating Thomas like a dad for my mom's sake? Or do I have a right to maintain boundaries and honor my real dad's memory? I'm torn and could use some outside perspective. My mom and dad were high school sweethearts. They got married young and had me when my mom was 25. I know my mom still loves my dad and misses him too, but I think she's lonely and scared of being alone as she gets older. I can understand why she wants to build a new family unit with Thomas. I just wish she could see why that's so hard for me. I've tried suggesting family therapy to work through some of these issues, but my mom and Thomas don't think it's necessary. They seem to think I'll eventually come around if they just keep pushing. But the more they push, the more I want to pull away. I'm counting down the days until I graduate and can move out on my own. But I'm worried about how that will affect my relationship with my mom long term. I don't want to lose her, but I also can't keep living in this tense, uncomfortable situation. Any advice on how to navigate this would be really appreciated. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support on my original post. I wanted to give an update on what's happened since then. Things have continued to be really tense at home for the past couple of weeks. My mom is still upset with me for refusing to accept Thomas as a father figure. She keeps making little comments trying to guilt me, like, Thomas has done so much for us, and why can't you just give him a chance? It's incredibly frustrating because I feel like she's not listening to or respecting my feelings at all. Thomas has backed off a bit with trying to actively parent me, but now he's acting all hurt and sulky. He barely speaks to me and gives me these sad, wounded looks. The atmosphere in the house is so awkward and uncomfortable. I've been spending as much time as possible in my room or out with friends just to avoid the tension. I tried sitting down with both of them again to calmly explain my perspective. I told them that while I appreciate everything Thomas has done for our family, I'm just not comfortable viewing him as a dad or authority figure. I explained that it has nothing to do with Thomas personally, but that my dad's memory is really important to me and it feels disrespectful to replace him. My mom got emotional during this conversation and said she feels like I'm forcing her to choose between me and her husband. I told her that's not the case at all. I want her to be happy with Thomas. I just need some boundaries when it comes to his role in my life. Thomas mostly stayed quiet, but did say he never meant to try to replace my dad. I thought maybe we had made some progress, but that turned out to be wishful thinking. A couple days after that conversation, my mom informed me that she and Thomas had discussed it and decided I was being unreasonable. She said that as long as I live under their roof, I need to treat Thomas with the same respect I would give a parent, including calling him dad. I was furious. I told her I would never call Thomas dad, and that she can't force me to feel something I don't. We got into another big argument, and I ended up storming out of the house. I stayed at my best friend Zoe's house for a couple nights to cool off. Zoe has been really supportive throughout this whole situation. Her parents are divorced and she has a stepdad, so she understands some of what I'm going through. She thinks my mom and Thomas are being completely unreasonable in trying to force a parental relationship. While I was at Zoe's, I called my mom's sister, my Aunt Linda, 38F. She has always been really supportive and understanding. I explained the whole situation to her and asked for her advice. Aunt Linda was horrified by how my mom and Thomas were handling things. She said they have no right to try to force a parental relationship on me, especially given that I'm nearly an adult. Aunt Linda told me some things about my parents' relationship that I never knew before. Apparently my mom and dad went through a rough patch when I was really young, around 2 or 3 years old. They even separated briefly. Aunt Linda thinks my mom might be overcompensating now with Thomas because she feels guilty about that time with my dad. I was shocked to hear this. My parents always seemed so happy and in love when I was growing up. It made me wonder what other things about their relationship I might not know or understand. I wish I could talk to my dad about it. Aunt Linda offered to let me come stay with her for a while if I needed some space from the situation at home. She lives about an hour away and said I could finish out my senior year at her local high school if things don't improve with my mom and Thomas. I'm seriously considering taking her up on the offer. I love my mom, but I just can't deal with this pressure to accept Thomas as my dad. It feels like a betrayal of my real dad's memory. At the same time, the thought of moving out and changing schools for my senior year is really scary. I've lived in this town my whole life. All my friends are here. I'm on the soccer team and was hoping to be captain next year. I'm also worried about how it would affect my college applications if I switch schools now. I'm torn on what to do. Part of me wants to stand my ground and not let them bully me into accepting a relationship I'm not comfortable with. But another part worries I'm overreacting and potentially damaging my relationship with my mom forever. I decided to reach out to my guidance counselor at school to get her perspective. She was really understanding and helpful. She suggested I write a letter to my mom explaining my feelings, since face-to-face conversations seem to keep escalating into arguments. She also gave me some information on grief counseling, thinking it might help me process some of my lingering feelings about my dad's death. I'm working on the letter now, trying to find the right words to express how I'm feeling without being accusatory. I want my mom to understand that this isn't about not liking Thomas or not wanting her to be happy. It's about preserving my connection to my dad and not feeling ready for a new father figure in my life. I'm still not sure what I'm going to do long term. I might try the letter and see how my mom responds before making any decisions about possibly moving in with my aunt. I appreciate all the advice and support from everyone here. It's helped me feel less alone in dealing with this difficult situation. Update 2. Hey everyone, I wanted to give another update on my situation. Things have gotten even more complicated and intense since my last post. After staying with my aunt for a week, I decided to go back home and try to work things out with my mom and Thomas. I really didn't want to have to change schools for my senior year if I could avoid it. When I got home, my mom acted like nothing had happened and tried to hug me. I stepped back and told her we needed to talk. I gave her the letter I had written explaining my feelings. She read it silently while I waited nervously. When she finished, she had tears in her eyes. She said she hadn't realized how much I was still struggling with grief over my dad. We had a long talk where I opened up about how much I miss him and how it feels like accepting Thomas as a dad would be letting go of my real father. My mom apologized for not being more sensitive to my feelings. She admitted that she had been so focused on building a new family with Thomas that she hadn't considered how that would affect me and my memories of Dad. It felt like a breakthrough, and I thought maybe things would get better. But then Thomas came home and the whole dynamic shifted again. He was upset that my mom and I had talked without him. He insisted that we all sit down together to discuss the family situation. During this conversation, Thomas said he felt disrespected and unappreciated in our home. He brought up all the things he does for us, helping pay bills, doing home repairs, etc. The argument escalated and Thomas ended up saying he's earned the right to be called Dad. I lost my temper at that point and yelled that he would never be my dad and needed to back off. My mom started crying and Thomas told me to go to my room like I was a little kid. I refused and said they can't punish me for having feelings. Thomas got in my face and said as long as I live under his roof, I'll follow his rules. That's when I snapped and told him it's not his roof. The house belongs to my mom and dad. My real dad left it to us in his will. Thomas turned bright red and stormed out of the room. My mom was furious and said I had no right to bring up the house situation. Apparently, Thomas didn't know my dad had left us the house free and clear. My mom had led him to believe they owned it together. I felt a little bad about outing that information, but also felt like Thomas needed the reality check about his place in our family. My mom told me I was grounded indefinitely for my cruel behavior. I laughed and said she couldn't ground me from my own house that my dad left me. Things have been icily tense ever since that blow-up a few days ago. Thomas barely looks at me, and my mom only speaks to me when absolutely necessary. I've mostly been staying in my room to avoid them. I called my aunt again to update her on the situation. She thinks I should look into my legal rights regarding the house since I'm almost 18. She's worried my mom might try to put Thomas's name on the deed or something. I'm not sure I want to go that route, but I am concerned about protecting what my dad left for me. I'm also wondering if I should reach out to my dad's family. We haven't been super close with them since he passed, but maybe they would have some insight on what my dad would have wanted in this situation. I'm hesitant to involve them and create more drama, though. I'm feeling really lost and alone right now. I miss my dad so much and wish he was here to help me navigate all this. I love my mom, but I feel like she's chosen her new husband over me and my dad's memory. I'm seriously considering taking my aunt up on her offer to live with her. At least there I wouldn't have to walk on eggshells in my own home, but I'm worried about how that would affect my relationship with my mom long term. I don't want to lose her, but I also can't keep living like this. Update 3. I want to thank everyone again for all the support and advice. I have one final update on this whole mess. Things continued to be really tense at home after my last update. My mom and Thomas were barely speaking to me, and when they did, it was only to criticize me for being difficult. I was miserable and counting down the days until I could move out. Then last week, everything blew up in a way I never expected. I came home from school to find my mom crying in the kitchen. When I asked what was wrong, she broke down and confessed that Thomas had been cheating on her. Apparently, he'd been having an affair with a coworker for months. I was shocked and angry on my mom's behalf, but also felt a bit of vindication. All this time, Thomas had been trying to play the perfect father figure while betraying my mom behind her back. It just proved my instincts about him had been right. My mom apologized through her tears for not listening to me about Thomas. She said she had been so desperate to recreate a perfect family that she ignored all the red flags. She told Thomas to move out immediately. After Thomas left, my mom and I had a long, honest talk. I told her how hurt I'd been by her prioritizing her new marriage over my feelings. She acknowledged that she'd handled everything terribly and begged for my forgiveness. We both cried and hugged for a long time. It felt like I finally had my mom back after years of tension. She promised to never try to replace my dad or force a relationship on me again. We looked at old photo albums of my dad together and shared memories of him. My mom also assured me that she would never try to change anything with the house my dad left us. She said she realizes now how special that legacy is and wants to honor his wishes. It's been about a week since Thomas moved out. My mom is heartbroken, but also seems relieved in a way. We've been spending a lot of time together, just the two of us like old times. It feels like we're rebuilding our bond. We've had some really good conversations about my dad and how much we both miss him. My mom shared some stories about their early relationship that I'd never heard before. It made me feel closer to both of them. I'm still planning to move out after graduation, but now it's on much better terms with my mom. We've talked about looking at apartments together, and she's going to help me get set up. I'm excited to start this new chapter of my life with my mom's full support. As for Thomas, I haven't heard anything from him since he moved out. My mom said he's been texting her trying to apologize and win her back, but she's not interested. She realizes now that their relationship was built on shaky ground from the start. I've been processing a lot of complicated emotions about the whole situation. While I'm glad Thomas is out of our lives, I do feel bad for my mom going through another loss. I'm trying to be there for her as much as I can. I've also been thinking a lot about my dad and what he would think of everything that's happened. Part of me wishes I could talk to him about it all, but I like to think he'd be proud of me for standing up for myself and our family. This whole ordeal has been really difficult, but I'm cautiously optimistic about the future now. My mom and I are communicating better than we have in years. I feel like I can finally breathe in my own home again.